And joining me now is the top Democrat, as Ken promised, on the task force investigating the assassination attempt, Congressman Jason Crow of Colorado, a veteran who served 3 combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. So thank you for joining us, Congressman. What are the open questions that you want answered today?
Well, first, I want to state that something really significant happened last month when Congress created this task force, and that is every single voting member that day, every Democrat and every Republican voted 416 to nothing to create this task force. And I think that just shows the seriousness of this effort, the bipartisan nature of this effort. Congress is taking this very seriously. We have a responsibility to do this completely, quickly, and thoroughly, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So this is the real start of our investigation. We've asked for documents. We've asked for witness testimony. But I learned in the Army Rangers that there's no substitute for being on site to seeing the ground yourself. So we're going to look at the buildings. We're going to look at the perimeter. We're going to look at where the podium was, where the platform was. And then we're going to convene and talk to local law enforcement officials and have a listening session to understand their challenges of that day. So this is the first step in what's going to be multiple steps of our investigation.
Do you have a sense of who's to blame for this? I know the Secret Service director stepped down after a lot of pressure. Is it the local agents on site? Is it the local law enforcement? Who is to blame for what happened?
Well, that's what we're going to find out, right? We're going to do this thoroughly, and we're going to do this in a sequential manner, right? We're not going to jump to conclusions. We're actually going to gather the facts. Then we're going to figure out what the standards were, what should have happened, and what didn't happen. And then we're going to apply the facts to the standards, and then we're going to push for accountability. What we do know is that there were a series of failures. There were a lot of things that you don't have to be a security expert to know went wrong. You know, why wasn't that rooftop secured? Why weren't local law enforcement and Secret Service talking to each other effectively? Why wasn't there an air cap to prevent drone flying over that site? Those are just a few of the things that we have to get answers to, and we will.
There is a heritage event happening in D.C. right now, attended by a number of Republican lawmakers who are looking into the assassination attempt, they say. Matt Gaetz, one of them, Andy Biggs, another. They're conducting this investigation. Republican Corey Mills is also there. He suggested the failure was intentional. How much does this effort that we're seeing affect what you guys are doing?
It doesn't. We're not focused on that effort. I mean, we are the congressionally mandated effort. As I said at the beginning, every single member of Congress voting on this voted to create this task force. Is a bipartisan and serious task force. We have staff, we have resources, we have security consultants, and we have subpoena power. And we are the ones directly in contact with and discussing with Secret Service, with Homeland Security, with the agencies that were involved. So we're going to get the information. We're going to do this quickly but thoroughly, and we're going to answer the questions that Americans deserve to have answered.
So today is the 3rd anniversary of that withdrawal of Afghanistan, which did not go well. The former president, Donald Trump, is trying to blame all of that on the Biden administration. Now he's trying to say Kamala Harris owns some of that as well. Do you believe she does?
Well, first off, I mourn those 13 service members who were killed 3 years ago today, as well as the over 2,400 Americans who died over the 20 years of that war, right? This is a war that spanned 4 administrations, Republican and Democrat. It spanned 10 Congresses, Republican and Democrat. And that's why we created a bipartisan commission, the Afghanistan War Commission, to look at the full 20 years of America's involvement. What I can tell you, though, right now, is that America's sons and daughters, our service members, are not fighting and dying in Afghanistan because Joe Biden made the hard decision to end that war, which years ago I learned was not winnable militarily. So we are not losing our young folks anymore because of that decision.
Donald Trump also put the plans in place to make sure that withdrawal happened under the Biden administration. One other question for you, and this is about Kamala Harris and her foreign policy. Do you see it as distinct from President Biden's foreign policy, and how so?
Well, of course it will be distinct. She's a different person, a different leader with different experiences. And we already saw that she was very clear. Let's talk about the Israel-Gaza thing, for example, that she made it very clear that Israel has a right to defend itself, which I fully agree with. But the manner in which it does so is really important. It's important to Americans because all of our aid and support to any ally anywhere, not just this particular issue, but anywhere, has to be in accordance with Americans' interests. So she's already, signaling that her own perspective and her own background will inform her approach to this. And I'm frankly very excited for America to see her leadership and for her to make the case over the next couple of months about how she's going to usher in this new era of leadership.
I have questions about what she's going to focus on, what she'll prioritize. But since Israel and Gaza is in the news right now and so top of mind, do you see her as treating Israel any differently than President Biden is treating the country right now?
Well, like I said, she said very clearly that she supports Israel's right to defend itself, but the manner in which it does so is critical. It's key, right? You have to center the protection of civilians. You have to center humanitarian issues. And I learned in 3 combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan that when you're fighting terrorism, you can't just do it militarily. You have to use diplomacy. You have to use humanitarian aid. And if you don't center the protection of civilians in combat zones, you actually create a bigger problem than you're solving, right? If you could do it just with military support, the United States would have been able to defeat the Taliban, would have been able to defeat al-Qaeda and ISIS after 20 years of war, spending trillions of dollars. But guess what? We didn't do it, right? So the lesson learned for America there is that you have to center the rights of all folks. And that's why I continue to push for a 2-state solution.
Well, just as the president has been doing. I'll save that question for another interview. I'd like to get a little bit more about whether there would be actual differences and maybe the way that we're arming Israel or the amount of leeway we give the country going forward. I'm still kind of unclear on that. Congressman Jason Crow, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.